Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
We want to welcome you to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline show. And once again, we want to thank our listening and viewing audience for joining us today. As you know, we promote a program with the National Federation of the Blind, and it's called Newsline, NFB Newsline. It's a free service for blind and print challenged citizens. Even those that are deaf-blind now can utilize the service. The service allows individuals to read newspapers, right over 490 different newspapers that we have nationally, and we also have 15 international newspapers that individuals can read. And they read them in a myriad of ways. They can use their landline phones, which most seniors do, and the young adults and young people now using the smartphones. They can use the smartphones as well as their computers and other devices that we have. Florence, we have the digital talking player with the library services. That's a good tool to use. I like using that one as well. And we also have the VictorStream Reader. I really like using that one as well. And individuals know that if you follow the prompts on the commercials, you'll be able to find out about those devices and where you can acquire them from. This free service, Florence, also has magazines. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people still read. They love to read magazines, as well as their newspapers. And in the newspapers, you know, if I wanted to read the Indianapolis newspaper, I'm a totally blind citizen. And if I wanted to read the Indianapolis newspaper 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I can now do that. And this helps me and helps other citizens to stay informed and make informed decisions about almost about anything that's publicized. As you know, we have to, you know, understand there's a lot of fake news out there, I guess, as well. So, but you know, it gives us an opportunity for the first time to have opportunities to know about you know, what's going on in our communities, not just Indiana. I can read the Indianapolis Business Journal, the Indianapolis Monthly, the Indianapolis Recorder. That's just in Indiana, just in Indianapolis itself, you know, as well as follow the weather alerts. And another good tool is job listings. So, and we'll be talking about jobs here and the people with disabilities. Florence, you want to talk a little bit about the magazines that we offer?
Oh, I certainly will. Now, what I like about Newsline, it gives me access to not just the newspapers and magazines, and but it gives me access to basically just a lot of information. And some of the magazines that are included, they have magazines that are blindness related. I like to read those. Family magazines such as Family Fun, Family Circle, Parents magazines. For people who are health conscious, there's magazines for those individuals as well. And so as I say, at every show, there is a magazine for everyone, every lifestyle.
And we have a children's magazine that's called Stone Soup.
I love that magazine.
Children really love to read it. And,
oh, so do I.
You know, and we have children that are now wanting to write in their stories, you know, so that's very encouraging that, you know, children with visual impairments can now participate in the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, and something that's just specific for them. So we're going to take us a short pause, and we're going to come back with some very informative guests with some great information. So stay tuned, and we'll see you shortly.
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduce the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline. Experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
Welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. And we have some special guests today. And I guess I will be the first to introduce the first guest. We have Miss Kathy Bernhardt.
Yes.
And you are from TanGram, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about your position with TanGram?
Sure. I am the director of our service line called TanGram Business Resourcing, and what we offer is consulting and training for businesses to become more disability inclusion.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a, that is something I really want to talk about as we go through the show.
Great.
I think there's going to be some great information shared. And so now we have Rebecca Bahan, and she's with the American Sign Language and also Luna language.
Yes, yes.
So you tell us a little bit about the Luna language and the American Sign Language.
Sure. I am the Director of American Sign Language Services and Education for Luna Language Services. Luna is a multi-language agency, and we offer interpreting and translation services in over 200 languages, but one of our major languages is American Sign Language. So I'm the director of that department.
So how long have you been in existence with American Sign Language? When did that all start, originate?
Sure. With myself, I've been a certified ASL interpreter for almost 20 years. And my position with Luna, this now marks my 5th year with them as the director of the department.
Now, one of my inquiries, now with the deaf, blind, do you work with many of the deaf-blind community? Is that such a small population?
You're right, it is a small population, but we do work with them in a couple different ways. We provide up-close interpreting for those that have still some sight that they can see. So as interpreters, our hands go up close to their face. We provide tactile interpreting, which is when the individual's hand goes underneath the hands of the interpreter, and the interpreter interprets so they understand that way. And then there's a technique called protactile or haptic interpreting, which is where an individual, an interpreter, stands behind the deaf-blind individual and on their back tells them what's going on environmentally. So if there were a deaf-blind presenter, for example, one of the interpreters would stand behind that presenter and on their back give them the layout of the room and tell them when people are on their phone or yawning or walking in and out of the room. And so it's a really, really unique and fascinating way of communicating with the deaf-blind community.
Okay, so that's like almost like narrative.
Yes.
Yeah, narrators.
Because I've been puzzled, and we'll talk about puzzles here in a minute, but I was puzzled some years ago when I was with the Governor's Planning Council going through one of the training seminars there, and I was had an interpreter, and I was speaking through the interpreter to a deaf-blind citizen or student at the time. And the young lady in our conversation, she asked me what type of phone did I have. And I'm still puzzled because, she's deaf and blind. And, at that time I had an old flip phone.
Yes.
And she told me that I needed to get an upgrade on my phone.
Absolutely.
So I've been puzzled by that. How, just how did she know that? I guess the interpreter must have eased that one in on her to say he's got an old flip phone and tell him, is that what happened?
I'm sure the interpreter told her. It's actually signed differently too. So just by signing the type of phone you have, it's obvious if it's a flip phone or a smartphone.
Yeah, it was that one kind of still puzzled me. So, but I thought it was really interesting because she was right. I did need to get another phone, so I did upgrade. So, let's talk a little bit about how you guys actually came together and partnered, and what you're partnering for.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Well, sure. Kathy and I crossed paths at another community event that was specifically for discussions and, and conversations with Eli Lilly and their disability employment workforce. And our paths crossed there, and we realized that we shared a mission. And Lunar Language Services is a language company, but because American Sign Language is a component of that, ASL kind of has their feet in both the language service and the disability community. And so since then, we've collaborated on several different events, and we provide services to TanGram to their deaf employment or employees. And again, it was just kind of a perfect match of two different services that look at the same coin, two different types of services that provide access to a segment of the disability community.
Now, about Kathy, you're the director also of TanGram, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, can you give us about what your mission is?
Sure. Our mission is all about providing support services for people with disabilities of all disabilities, making sure that they're integrated into the community, whether that means just employment, residential, helping them with services, behavioral, life coaching. We provide it all to make sure that they are living full and happy lives. And because we know how important it is, especially when it comes to the employment of people with disabilities and residential supports as well.
And how long has TanGram been in existence?
Oh, TanGram's been in existence for over 30 years. We started out as a very small organization in 1985. I'm actually from Greenfield, Indiana, in Hancock County, and has grown now, and we provide services for over 200 or 300 people throughout central Indiana.
Okay. Now, that when I first heard the word TanGram, the first thing that came to my mind was the puzzle. And so did TanGram get its name because of certain aspects of the puzzle, or?
It did. We actually rebranded our name back in 2007 or 8. Actually, right when I started with TanGram, it was called Indianapolis Residential Services, and everybody took the acronym of IRL. And the IRL, we know what that is, the Indiana Racing League. So somebody said, you need to change your name, but it really didn't represent who we were. So TanGram is a puzzle piece, and if you put all those puzzle pieces together, it's an infinite number of designs you can do. And we believe people with disabilities have an infinite number of ways of living their lives, and that's what we're here to help them do.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, we know that people with disabilities, the employment rate is extremely high. It ranks around 70%. And I would tend to think that in certain ethnicities, it's much higher than that. Now, dealing with the the educational aspect of it all, we know that individuals need to be, educated so that they can qualify for the job market. Where do you guys come in on that level?
Well, at TanGram, there's different levels that we provide services for. We have job coaches that actually help train individuals and help them find positions that they are qualified for. If they're not qualified and they're wanting to build their skill set, we help them find those resources for that as well. And then on the other side, what I actually am responsible for at TanGram is consulting and training on the business side. So I help businesses recruit, hire, and retain individuals with disabilities. We do a lot of training and consultation with them.
Now, dealing with businesses and in this country, it's just not in Indiana.
That's right.
But dealing with the business and the misperceptions and of the, just people with disabilities. What are you finding there?
I just worked in an 11-state project for the last 4 years, and it's no different in any state that you go to. I think most employers want to hire people with disabilities. Some are doing a great job. Some are really making a huge campaign about it as well, and realizing the untapped workforce that they are. So we need to celebrate that as well. But I still also think that there's large gaps, and I think it's mostly due to fear and stigma that people have about disabilities, and not only the fear and stigma of disabilities, but the assumptions that they may have. We all have unconscious bias or implicit bias that is part of our unconscious bias that makes us all think, differently, or we want to put disabilities all in a box. Just as you know, it can't be. We are all an individual. It's not about the disability itself. It's about the person. But somebody that doesn't have a disability, that's hard for them to understand, I believe, sometimes. And if you can help address those fears and stigmas, and it goes a long way. And if the company is willing to address the fears and stigmas, then they're very successful in integrating people with disabilities in the workforce.
Yes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, because those stigmas really create discrimination. And and this is discriminatory, in our universities and our schools and in our society as a whole. So how do you guys work in trying to overcome that portion of it all prior to dealing with employers?
I think mostly with the employers is the education piece of that, is educating them on disabilities, whether it's somebody that is hearing or deaf, or somebody that is visually or blind, or somebody that maybe have a physical disability. It could be autism or an intellectual disability. Just educating the businesses on those aspects of what a disability is, and it's really about the ability, not the disability. And I think that we need to focus on that and show businesses that maybe they may be doing their work a little differently, but they're getting it's just doing it in a different way. And I think there's some changes that are starting to happen. As I said earlier, there's lots of businesses out there that are really pushing for that, and trying to. I don't think that anybody wants to discriminate. I'm gonna say that on a really wide. I like to see the good in everybody, maybe, and I'm a little naive that way. But I think if people were more educated on cultural differences and disabilities, and no matter what it is, I think they wouldn't discriminate. So we have a lot of education still left to do on all areas.
Okay, well, we're going to take a short break on that note, and we'll be right back to continue this conversation. Stick with us.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
I am a blind vendor, and one of the things that I truly miss is reading Vending Times magazine.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
It is a fantastic service.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
Well, welcome back to our show, and we are going to continue our conversation with Kathy from TanGram and Rebecca from
Luna Language Services. Yes.
Luna Language. And we were talking about, how we want to include and people with disabilities in the workforce. So let's continue that conversation, if we will.
I'd like to add something, if you don't mind, to the question that was posed before the break regarding discrimination and getting employers to look at members of the disability community. Specifically for the deaf community, I think one of the judgments or perceptions easily made on the deaf community is that they have really bad language. They don't have really, their English language is sometimes appears to be subpar. And I think that is just merely a misunderstanding. American Sign Language, which is the language of the deaf community, is not English. So it's as different to English as French is to English, as German is to Spanish. So that means that English is their second language. So in written communication, which some people think is a great accommodation for the deaf community, it's, think about classes you took in high school or in college for a foreign language and how adept you might be in that second language. And I think if that's just a little part of the education, that if we can have that education piece with potential employers to let them know these are individuals who are fluent and in American Sign Language and capable of anything that that the hearing community is capable of, and getting secondary degrees and professional jobs and working very well in those areas. I think that would be a key to help lessen the implicit bias and the areas for potential discrimination.
Yeah,
I agree.
now you're being with, Luna Language. Then when you're getting people to interpret, so you're getting people with different languages, correct?
Correct.
About how many different languages would you say that Luna Language has?
So we offer on-site interpreting services for over 200 languages.
Wow.
And American Sign Language is right up there in the top 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you both have an event coming up on the, this is
It's a past event. It happened.
past event.
Yes,
Okay.
September 18th.
September 18th.
Yep. And we actually, it was a great turnout, and it was called Ensuring Everyone is Heard. And we had 2 businesses there that have embraced disabilities in their workplaces and to tell their stories on their journey to hiring people with disabilities. We spoke with Citizens Energy Group, who has a wonderful diversity program, and they also hire people with disabilities and have done a phenomenal job. So it was an educational event to also kick off and celebrate National Disability Awareness Month, which is in October. And it was all businesses, a lot of large Indianapolis corporations and global companies that actually joined us at that event to learn more about maybe how they could even start an initiative to hire more people with disabilities. And I'll let Rebecca tell a little bit about the guests that they had from Luna Language.
Yeah.
Because this is a great story.
It's an amazing story. We have worked with Gatorade, PepsiCo here in the Indianapolis area, and Gatorade has a deaf manager, in their warehouse. And this was an individual who applied for the position just like anybody else would. And through the course of the interviews and the selection process, they realized that this individual was deaf. And the hiring supervisor of this position said, bring him in. I want to see what he can do. I want to see, you know, his skill set. They brought him in, they hired him, and which is fairly unusual for someone like that to be brought in a management position, not having to work their way up. And so Gina and Dustin are going to have come to this event, but we've seen him throughout the city and several different events that we've hosted and sponsored, so that they can share their story of the success of bringing on someone who is deaf, someone who has a disability, and aspiring to see their ability, not their disability.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna pause at this time, and we're going to be coming back with part 2, and we want to learn more about some of the endeavors and some of these inspirational realities that you're sharing with us. So we just want to say stay tuned for the second segment of this interview next week, and we look forward to sharing more information with you.
The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.
You gonna count me down?
We have disabilities.
And we make you uncomfortable.
It's why you love to vote as prom king.
But do you remember us on Monday?
You are afraid to see us fail.
It's why you place us in jobs
with few challenges.
We make you nervous.
So you do really silly things.
Like talking louder
to someone who's blind.
Now, think about that.
And then take a deep breath.
Relax.
Relax.
Just be yourself.
Be you.
Just be cool.
Because most certainly,
I am.
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 This guy is.
We are.
Help us celebrate Indiana Disability Awareness Month just by being you.
Please show your support by sharing this video.